All right. So today, I'm going to be sharing my testimony. And yes, it is a different day entirely. I know that I'm dressed exactly the same way as I was dressed yesterday in the same room, but I promise you I'm not making multiples a day. um, it's just my comfy housewear. You can probably hear my kids screaming. They're playing Xbox, but they're occupied, and so I hope it doesn't distract you because I literally almost can't hear it. So anyways, my testimony seems like a mouthful. Seems like that's a lot to go over, but it's really not, especially since I don't know, I haven't really done anything. um, I grew up in church. Uh, I grew up Christian in a Christian house. Everyone loved God. I loved God. I had no questions. I, um, nothing about it was confusing. I understood it like right away. Um, didn't even know, probably understand that I was kind of like walking with God. I mean, I was being a kid and doing kid stuff and whatnot. But I very much, I don't feel like there's any kind of before and after in my life. I just have always been with God, been on the God train, on the Jesus train, always sort of talked to Him, included Him in my life. Um, I I don't know. I felt like I had this. It seemed as though I was developing this wisdom that was beyond my years. Um, I didn't really hang out with kids my age. Um, my mom had a lot of Bible studies, had a lot of friends, get-togethers, things like that, and I was always kind of in the middle and sharing my 2 cents, and they would let me and um, I don't know. I had a couple of friends my age. I tried to have. I don't know if I tried, but I had like a lot of the basic upbringings. I think once I got to be a teenager is when I really started to veer from the normal teenage path and just really saw the differences in what people were going after and just was like, yeah, it's going to be a hard pass for me. So I became sort of just a reclusive person. Not like, I mean, I'm sure if I had fit in better and, had a lot more luck, I would have had a more average upbringing, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. And I'm kind of glad because um, it was a hot mess for a lot of people my age that I either found out immediately or didn't find out till later. And I don't know, pretty boring, honestly. But I don't know. It's hard to look back on those years. I just don't really. It's just so long ago, and I don't really remember. But yeah, I guess my first real sense of identity and having any sort of confidence in who I was going to college and realizing that I was a writer and um, something I was always good at, but not something I really enjoyed doing. I still didn't really enjoy doing it while I was in college, but I was doing it, and I basically switched majors because I wanted to do music. I wanted to be in the music business, which is laughable, but it's true. I did. I wanted to, find talent and do all that stuff. Be the P Diddy of my whatever. And I didn't have the temperament for it at all. But I just figured, I just knew music. I understood. I felt like I had an ear for that type of stuff, and I just thought, well, I'll get a degree. I'll be able to get in somewhere, fit in somewhere, with some, I knew I needed the degree. I couldn't just like move to LA or New York or whatever and like get it on my own. But I just thought, somewhere between freshman year and senior year, I'll get an internship, something will happen, I'll figure it out. Because I just really felt like that was what I was supposed to be doing. And I mean, that was 18. I felt like this is what I was supposed to be doing. So yeah, it didn't work at all. The first of all, the major itself was just dry. It was really, really, really hard to get through those classes. I mean, they were just not engaging at all. It was just information cram, information cram. It was just like, yeah, this is not what I want to do with the next 4 years of my life. So I switched to English just to graduate, because I think it wasn't the first year, but I think the first semester where it was just like a car crash, and then I don't know. I feel like I did have to like catch up a little bit. I graduated on time. I graduated like later that year. Like instead of it graduating in spring, I graduated that winter. So I pulled it together, but basically I went to English and killed it and managed to graduate with, as a decent student. And then, then I tried to be an adult and got kicked around for a couple of years, until I got married 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. And then just been at home ever since. Blah, blah, blah. So I didn't even really mean to get into that, but I guess it gives you a little bit of context for basically what my testimony, which is literally like 3 months long. so um, so yeah, I married my husband, who was not a Christian when we got married, but um, he was not a believer, but it was really strange because like I would read proverbs and stuff to him, and he would respond to the word like no one I've ever met to this day. He just like loved the wisdom of it and just was like of course, because this and this and this, like he just had such an enthusiasm for the word. Like I had never seen anybody like that, and I knew from my church going days, I was never like super attracted to anybody at church, um, and didn't even really know what that was going to even look like. But I knew I needed somebody. My parents, who both loved God and had the same, had a genuine enthusiasm for God. My mom's still here. My dad just like passed this year, and they would be up all night talking and conversating, and and I would be part of those conversations, and they genuinely got their delight from God, and so I was like, well, I have to have that. And that was hard to find. That I mean, I don't know how it is in church for y'all lately, but to find people who have a genuine enthusiasm for God, not just like when it's their turn to talk, but like literally just in the car talking for hours about stuff. Not about like what God is doing with your, yoga class or whatever, but like literally about God and like his attributes. And so he wasn't saved, but he was that person for me. So I was like, well, and the way that he sort of entered my life was just kind of this weird, not normal thing for me. So I just started walking this road, and it was bumpy, but he got saved probably about a year later, and I got pregnant, had my first kid, then we had him back to back, um, and we just been walking. But he has a past. He comes from a long line of sexual abuse, and drug abuse on both sides, y'all. So it's a mess. And for me, who kind of grew up, in Podunk, in a suburb of Oklahoma, the hardest thing that I'd ever seen was, I don't know, someone shoplift some lipstick or whatever. Like it was not even a culture shock. It was just a shock. Um, so he taught me a lot. I taught him a lot, and we're still learning, obviously. Um, but all this to say that this year kind of had like, I don't know, it was a rough year for me. Like it's kind of those things like I go like, man, this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. Like I can't believe how rough it's been. Like it doesn't feel like it has been, but I can acknowledge like it's been a rough year. But it kind of started last year. And basically what happened is I started doing drugs. Ta-da! Like what? So I started doing drugs. By drugs, I don't mean pills. I don't mean fentanyl. I don't mean opiates. I don't mean, you know, I started smoking. I started, actually, I started with this, what do you call it? The gummies or whatever. And I won't say it was harmless, but like a friend of mine came into town and she's sort of having her own little journey, whatever. And she came to town and she had some, and she's a lot like me. Like, we used to like just spend all day like we just like to laugh and have fun and stuff like that. So I trusted her with it. My husband has sort of been an on and off. He never did anything hard because of how he grew up, but he used to smoke weed, or he smokes weed. He kind of has this thing where he'll like go on for 6 months and just be smoking every day for 6 months, and then just get tired of it, and then for a year you won't see it again. And that's kind of what I was used to. And then lately we found this new house and we moved into this new house. He got a great job, and like shortly after, well, no, I would say like within like the first year, he started smoking weed, and he just kind of was on a binge. Like it was like a 2 year long thing. But I never touched it because I was scared of it. I was scared of. I personally have never, growing up how I grew up, super sheltered, sheltered by choice. At some point, I sheltered myself because I was like, listen, you're not going to trick me into thinking shelter is bad, honey. I'm sheltering myself. So I sheltered myself a lot. I didn't want any drama. It didn't never appeal to me. There was nothing that seemed worth ruining my stability. And so drugs was kind of like the ultimate representation of that for me. So it was like, yeah, no. And I kind of knew myself. I said, I don't know what it's like to, you know, take some magical substance and suddenly be fearless or the life of the party or whatever. Like, I don't even know what I would do with that. Like, I don't want to know. Like, life is hard enough. Like, bills, like, take me out. Like, I'm just so, I don't need the drama. So for me, it was never even a temptation, even when it was in the house for years and years and years. It was never a temptation for me. It was always just something that was like that. Listen, you want to do that? That's fine, whatever. But I just was scared of it being this instant whirlpool of insanity, and I wasn't willing to even try to do it. And so it's really funny how it happened because basically, I went to the dentist. I went to the dentist, and they did a procedure, whatever. They needed to give me laughing gas or whatever, and I didn't even know that what was happening was basically me getting high as a kite. I mean, it was the first time I'd ever, whatever. But I just remember being like, oh yeah, now I understand if this is anything like drugs. Like I understand why people would take this or whatever. But honestly, like it's not worth like losing your whole entire life over. Like, it's like that was kind of cool. The next time I have a excuse to take that, I'll probably take that. Was kind of my idea about it. But what that did was it made me less fearful. It took away the fear entirely, really. Not entirely, but it took away just the initial, that initial thing. You're like, oh, is that what that is? Oh, okay. So, a fear that I would have usually had, um, if this friend of mine who had, the gummies on her, if she would have came, I would have just said no, and she would have been fine. I said, no, I'm not really, I don't need it. Thanks. And she would have just taken it and whatever. She wouldn't have pressured me. But she offered it to me. I took it because I wasn't scared anymore. That one little thing that happened just was enough. And it's really funny, like when I think back on it, like, or, when I was in it, I was just like, it's so funny how this happened. It's like, it's just life. Like, I can't even really, it's not even like, oh, if I hadn't gone down this road and did this thing, it's like life just happens to you and you just get caught in some stuff. Like, that's just what it is. I can blame myself and whatever, but it's just like, it's just what it is. So, so I took that and, it was funny. And, that was I would consider that my first official, being high or whatever. And, big whoop. And then, when you first take it, you're like, okay, yeah, like, maybe this will be just like an occasional thing, Christmas and whatever. And, you know, after, when the kids are gone or we're on vacation or whatever, you think you're going to just be a responsible person with it. Well, I won't say instantly, but I would say that it progressed instantly. Where, yeah, it'd be a once in a while thing. If anybody has some, yeah, I'll take some. And then it's like, well, just go down the street. There's a store right there. And you go down the street. And then it's like, okay, well, while the kids are at school, and then, when you're off of work, when you're off work and I'm off and the kids are at school, and then it's like, well, you're off work. And then when you're not off work and I'm by myself. So it's just like the progression was fast, which I always feared and anticipated. But it's just really funny because, it's not like I was ashamed and I had to go to this dark place while all this was happening. Like, I totally was sort of taking God with me on this thing. And I was just like, when I was high, I would like look up stuff online about, I would look up sermons, I would read, I would watch, you know, near death experiences. That's when I kind of was around the same time I was really getting into near death experiences, both heaven and hell, just whatever. I would watch, Chuck Missler, I would watch, that stuff. I liked thinking about that stuff. And, I mean, it's like being high. I mean, unless you don't. So, yeah, and it was fun. And then we would laugh and sit around and eat and have munchies or whatever. But, I noticed it getting just unmanageable and just being like, okay, well, you knew this was going to happen. So you're just going to have to, like, get this figured out here, sis. And I was like, yeah, no, absolutely. And so, as it was going from once a month to every other week to once a week to twice a week, and it was really funny too because I was noticing the what was happening. Like, I could see the trap of the enemy while I was doing the drug, because it was like, oh, I see how this works. So it's like, because I was like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Because once I started using, I was like terrified of changing the threshold. I always say, like, I don't want the threshold to change. I don't want to have to need more than what I've got, what I'm doing. So I was doing this sort of like scientific, calculating the measurements of like what I needed. And, with the gummies, it was great because it was like one of these or half of these or whatever. And so, trying to never, um, sort of deviate from what I needed. And yeah, when you use them a lot, they sort of build up in your system. And so, then it's like, okay, well, if you want to have a decent high next time, you're going to have to just like chill out for a week or whatever. Just having this whole, like, trying to have this system of discipline around it. And I noticed that Like one time, I bought one, or I took one and it didn't work. So he took two. Like, and that's the whole trick. That's it. That there's nothing else to the formula. It's like you think it's this reliable thing in nature that, and it's like it has nothing to do with nature. This is completely controlled by the enemy. So, it's like you think you're going to go and like turn the light switch on and it doesn't work. And so you're like, what? And so you're switching it and then you're doing like this, doing like this. Now it's like, oh, every single click that you clicked just now to try to get it, now you're getting all of that. Now you've raised your threshold. Like, I was like, oh, I see. He's sort of like pulling me in. It's like the enemy's like got this thing on a hook and he's like pulling, like, I'm going to get the thing and he pulls it back. And then it's like I'm reaching and then he pulls it back some more. And then I'm reaching. Now he's got me and then he pulls me. And now I'm in another place. I'm like, wow, that's really how. And I'm like, as I'm high, I'm like, wow, this is really, that's how he's doing it. That's crazy. And, I do remember like one time I was like, I was talking to God and I was like, and I was high and I was like, dude, this isn't even like all that great. Like, what am I doing? Like, I was like, or I was like, it wasn't even so much like, why can't I stop? But I was just like, I actually, no, I think that was what it was. It was just like, what is this? Like, what is this dynamic that's going on? Like, it was just foreign to me. And he was basically like, you've gone to a place beyond where just having knowledge is going to help you. I promise you, my kids aren't like dying; they're literally playing Xbox. Um, and it was true because everything that I had ever done in my life, or every decision that I made, every sort of path that I walked down, I had used the wisdom of God, the wisdom of the Bible, whatever revelation He was giving me, what I had observed from other people, gleaning from other people's lives. Everything was very like, I don't want to say I'm this cerebral sort of logical person. It's just kind of I don't know. That's just I'm just in my head. I just live in my head. And I was used to doing that. And he was just like, yeah, this is beyond. You've gone beyond your knowledge. Maybe possibly for the first time in my life. And it was like, yeah, knowledge can't help me here. And I was like, yeah, it can't. It can't help me here. I need steps. I need not steps, but it's like I need to now like ask God to help me because I'm like in over my head. So, but all the while, like he was sending me, like I was, feeling the conviction. I was watching the near death experiences. Oh, I had this drug and I had that drug, and coming across these articles about drugs being laced with other things, and marijuana being laced because at some point the gummies, like I remember one time I bought like a whole bag, like or I bought a bag and like the entire bag was duds. Like it was the most insane thing. It was just like completely demonic. And I think I had done that like two times in a row. Well, old Smokey in there, my husband was still, and he doesn't care that I'm, praise the Lord, he doesn't care that I'm outing him right now, even though you don't even know him, but he wouldn't be too worried about it. He's, we're both kind of in the same boat about keeping it real. But he always had, he was still smoking marijuana at this time, and I wouldn't go near it because I just didn't want to. I didn't want to learn a new skill. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to consume. It's like, listen, I understand eating. I don't understand the smoking situation. I don't understand that. I don't want to understand it. I don't want to put things in my lungs. Well, eventually, guess what? I didn't really smoke it, but like I would do. I think it's called like a shotgun, which is like where you have somebody blow the smoke. And so he had a bone too, but like he it broke and then he didn't buy another one. But and I used that a couple times too. And I don't know. I don't even know if that worked. I can't even remember if that worked or not. But he would do that, and um that worked. I kind of actually preferred the gummies over that. but it was getting so unreliable. Like I was like trying to stick to a brand and all this stuff. It was just like ridiculous. So, but if he bought like some decent stuff, like it would be good. And and I remember like I was coming across all of this stuff, and um, like I got convicted, and I was like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I was like, I'm gonna just fast. I'm gonna get off this stuff. And I remember like one of the times, like I got, the highest I've ever gotten. It was an accident, obviously, but he had bought like some garbage, and I was trying to smoke it, and I was trying to like whatever you call it. Um, I had like taken two puffs or whatever, and they were trash, and it was trash. And so the next day, and he said it's the same stuff, or no, maybe I'm mixing my stories. I think he got some new stuff like after that, and it was really good stuff. And so I had taken, I was treating it. I was still like low in my knowledge, so I was treating it um like it was the same, the same old any like it was all the same strain or whatever. And so I was like, well, let me take two, and then let me take another one, just for whatever, because I want to get like good and blasted or whatever. And I remember like within like the first like 30 or 45 minutes, I was like, what is that now? You said that was what? And I just remember I was like, ooh, this is too much. This is way too much. And like I went like way like I could tell already. I was like, this is beyond my threshold. Like and I just remember like walking to my living room, and I was like, oh, bro, bro. And he, of course, he just thought it was hilarious. Like y'all got to pray for him. Actually, he sort of like after I quit, he sort of quit like not shortly thereafter. So he hasn't been really smoking at all. But he just has these ideas. Like when you have been when you have intravenous drug users on both sides of the family and pill poppers on both sides of the family, like marijuana is not considered a drug to him. Like it's just not. So everything that's surrounding marijuana is just like jokes to him. And he started when he was a teenager, and and it was heavy, like him and his brothers kind of all did that. And so um they're used to that. So for him, he's like he just thinks it's funny because I'm just such a noob or whatever. And so I was like, oh my god, like it was bad. It was bad. It was bad. I was like, I have to go in my room until this like blows over. Like I am so like messed up right now. And yeah, it was a mess. And so that was like the worst I've ever been. And I was like, I never want to get there again. Like I just was really vigilant, and I actually did a pretty good job. I would say I did a pretty good job. So like from the beginning of this, because like that procedure that dentist procedure I had was like January of 2021, and then my friend came in October of 2021. So and I think right now we're up to like May, June of this year. So that's about 8 or 9 months of this period that I'm talking about. Well, so I got convicted. I was like, I'm gonna just quit. I'm gonna just quit. And while I felt this energy, and so it was rough. My flesh was like, "Wah." I was like, he's still smoking. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna just not smoke? Like he's smoking. And I was just like, I don't know, but I'm gonna do it. So I basically went on a fast, and I just did like a 3-day fast of marijuana, and I felt that urge leave. So I was like straight. It was like I was back to whatever. But life is still going on. My kids are it's summertime for the kids, so I'm just gonna like, when are you gonna go back to school? Like, and I'm just like, whatever. Well, we had a trip in August. We were going to go to Galveston in August. We're in Fort Worth, and so something in me was like, well, you're not going to be able to not to go to Galveston and not smoke and not do anything, because we're going with some other people who getting us all together, like, because they also don't, and one of it's his basically his brother, my brother-in-law. So it was like, for them that would just be like having wine. So it's like, okay, well, you're gonna probably smoke, and I want them to think I'm cool or whatever. So it's like, well, you're going to, and so I was like, well, okay, well, I'll do that, and then I'll have to just, even if I had to come back and just do another fast or whatever, and come back and do that, that's fine. I'll just have to do that because I knew what it was. So August comes around, we go, and we go on the trip. There's uh, marijuana involved. We get blasted. It's fun. Blah blah blah. And so then we come back, and then it's like, okay, now you're gonna have to quit, like right now, like whatever. Like, and even though the kids were due back at school like the next week or whatever, and it's like, I don't know what you're gonna do while you're home, but you gotta just quit. And it was like, yeah, no, it was just not going. It was way harder. And I was like thinking, I was like, it's way harder than it was at one time. Like, I should have. Why did I like not take that out, like, and just keep it? Like, I don't know what I was thinking. And then I thought of that scripture where it's like, when the devil gets cast out of a house and it gets swept clean, it's like it goes through the dry places, blah blah blah, and then comes back, with seven more is more wicked. And I was like, well, there's no way I just did that to myself. I was like, there's no way that I just did that to myself. No. Like, I was kind of in this denial, but also just kind of like, well, if that's what happened, like, okay, whatever. You're just gonna have to, like, next time, like, as soon as you feel like you see the exit sign, you have to get off of this thing. Like, I was like, it was a panic, but it was also just like a whatever. This is what you got to do. Like, you can't give up on this. Like, I knew it wasn't sustainable. I could see it was like, this is not sustainable. I have a whole house to look after and a husband and this and that. I can't be like looking at the who's got the bag, and do you have enough, and then are you did you smoke without me, and all, like, it's just, I was like, it's not sustainable. So I knew, like, instantly, it was like, you gotta just get over this. So I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. You're gonna get back on the whatever. If we gotta fast, we gotta go do a seminar, whatever. Like, you've gotta, like, get in this word, and really just go deeper, because you have to, like, get this thing handled. Well, so so a little bit after that, like, we go to, I'm thinking that the kids are going to go back to school. Well, it ends up where um, we go to their whatever you call it. It's like their introductory day or whatever. And I don't know, like, one of my kids isn't even registered. Like, he doesn't even have class to go to. Like, I don't know, the atmosphere was just like sketch. And, like, I don't know, I felt like I heard somebody's kid, some teacher, like, refer to, like, pronouns or something. And I was like, oh, what? Like, but in my mind, I was like, it wasn't even feasible that possible that they wouldn't be going back to school. I was like, well, whatever. We'll just, I don't know, but we'll just figure it out. And then, like, my church, I got an email from my church that was like, well, if you guys want to sign up for, or no, it was earlier that summer. It was like, if you guys want to sign up um, for for homeschool, like, if there's enough people interested, like, we might try it, start a coalition or whatever. So that was earlier that summer. Well, I got an email, like, right before their school was about to start, that was like, hey, we got enough people, and this is the sign up. It starts, September the this. And I was like, I think I should do that. I think I should do that. And but I was like, well, still, they can go to school. They can go to regular school till this thing starts up because it was like school starting mid August. This thing won't start until beginning of September. I was like, well, send them to school for 2 weeks. I was just like determined to get them out of the house because I had just had them like that whole summer, like in my house. And so I had made it through the summer, and I was just thinking, like, there's no way they're not going to be going back to school. Well, two of them fall sick like the night before the first day of school. And I mean, you can't send, you already can't send your sick kids to school anyways, but like post COVID, like there's just no way. So I was like, oh my God. So they weren't, I couldn't even get them to, out of the door the first day of school. So I was like, you know, forget it. Forget it. We just won't even do it. So I pulled them out for the year, and they never went back to school. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew they had they were starting this thing in September, and that's about all I knew. So I think at this point it's September, and it's like the end of September. I think I had gone to like maybe two or three of their homeschool things, which were like on Tuesday and Thursday. And I was like, during this time too, like I was looking at so many of these near death experiences and just different things. Like it started to sort of change my paradigm about God, and like just different things about God and the way that I, you know, related to him and stuff. And I just was noticing like, you know, everybody's having, they were having similar experiences, but they were very different as far as, you know, their, where they were located or what God would say to them, or, you know, depending on, you know, if they were Christian or not or whatever. And just the way that he related to them. And I just started thinking differently. I was like, you know what? Like, it doesn't really matter that they're not all. It's like when they go to heaven, it's like, oh, there's that pearly gate, and there's the clock tower, and the this and the that. Like, expecting to see the same, you know, having the same things in every single vision or every single experience. It's like, you know what? Heaven is vast, and hell is vast. Like, you know, and people are different, are equally as vast. Like, I was just like, there's probably enough heaven for everyone to never have the same see the same thing. And there's probably enough God that he can give, there's enough for everyone to each have their own individual experience. Like I just started to really understand that. And I was like, I prayed. I didn't even I do this thing where I'm like, you know what? I should pray to God. And I go, yes, I'm going to pray to God tomorrow at 8 in the morning because like nothing's going on and it's super quiet. Like I always plan that I'm going to go do it. Like I don't just do it right then. I don't know. It's just this weird thing in my brain. Poor God. Like he just says to deal with me. So I just remember I was like, you know what? I'm going to pray like that God really just like give me this revelation of his love or whatever. Like that's what I need. I feel like that's what I need. Like, you know, I'm stuck in this loop with these drugs. Like I don't want it to get any worse. It just literally can't. And I just need more. Like I don't have enough and I need more. And I was like, I just need, that's what I need to do. So I was like, I want to do this. Like, I was like, so whatever day it was, like, I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna smoke tomorrow, and you know my husband's off work, so I'm probably gonna smoke that day too. It's like okay, so after that, I'm gonna be done, and then I'm gonna just go straight into a fast, and I'm gonna start like really searching for God. And I was like excited about it, kind of. I was like, yeah, this is gonna work, and so I did that, and then whatever day it was, it got to be the last day, and I and like my flesh was just like, you know, he's off tomorrow too. You might as well just like make tomorrow your last day because you're probably gonna smoke tomorrow too. And I was like, okay, fine. So tomorrow, but tomorrow for sure is gonna be the last day. So So on my tomorrow for sure was going to be the last day, which I believe was a Tuesday, September the 20th. I do the smokings, and I knew it was good, some good stuff. I knew exactly how much to do, and I did. I was like, I knew I was gonna have a good day. It was gonna be a nice hurrah, and and I was happy with that about that. But I was like, tomorrow I'm gonna, you know, leave it all behind or whatever. So, and earlier that day, like the kids had actually, I think I was gonna take them, and then I ended up not. They were supposed to go to their homeschool, but they ended up not going or something. And so my mom was like, "Well, bring them in at like noon," because she had sort of taken the reins and was like, "Listen, if you're too not wanting to take on this whole like homeschooling thing with them, like I'll do some of it. I'll do like Monday and Wednesday, and I'll homeschool them, and I'll do it." And so she lives with us, but like we renovated the garage for her, so she has like her little garage apartment, and she loves it. And so they go in there and they have their homeschool or whatever. She's like, "I'll just do that." So she had been doing that for a couple of weeks, and she was like, we weren't going to the coalition center that day, and so she was like, "Well, bring him in like at 12, because I'm gonna do like we'll do like a bread. I'm gonna bake bread or whatever, and they can come see it. It'll be like a home ec thing." I was like, "Okay, cool." So, and there was something else like the night before or something that um I had gotten high, and she was like asking me something, and she had called me, or no, she brought the kids in there. She came to get the kids, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm tired," or whatever. And so I was like laying down in my bed, but I was just high. And like a little, maybe a couple of weeks before that, she had called me on the phone. It was like late at night, and I was high. And she called me, and I said, and she was talking to me about something, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool," or whatever. And she was like, "Are you like okay? Like you sound kind of sleepy or whatever." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just like tired." And she's like, "Okay." And so at that point, I just remember thinking in my brain, like, that can never happen again. Like that can never happen again. Um, I just was like not willing to let it get. I was like, no. So I was not willing to let it get that far ridiculous. And so like the day before, this the last final day, I had the whole thing, "Oh, I'm tired." And so this day she was like, "Yeah, bring him in at 12." And I was like, "Okay, well, I think we like sparked it up at like 11." And so around, about an hour in, I started getting that same feeling. Like I'm always a little bit, freaked out because of that, that the worst experience that I had had. And so I was like, "Oh, is this what's going on?" And so it kind of was starting to become like clear. I was like, "There's no way I just did that." Like I knew by that point it had been like months between my worst experience. I was like, I did not do that to myself. I didn't. I was like, but it felt like not only was I about to have that same experience, it was about to be even worse. I was like, "Babe, is this the same stuff that we smoked yesterday?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, because I'm like blasted already, and it's like been 47 minutes. Like, and he's like, "I don't know, it's the same stuff." I was like, "Dude, this is bad." And so I was like, it's so crazy because like it really felt like it was about to be the worst it's ever been. Like it was really strange. And I was like, "Oh no." And like I just didn't want that to be the last moment. And I also just didn't want to, I wasn't in the mood to do, because like when it's really bad like that, it's like 12 hours of just, it might maybe 6 hours in, it might go down to like where you wanted to be at 6 hours ago. But it was just like just thinking about hours and hours of this like complete and total like discomfort of just feeling too high. It's like, oh gosh, there's no way I did it to myself, and it felt like it was going to be nasty. It felt like it was going to be bad. So, I'm not the type of person that just wants to get like see things like I've had enough experiences. Like I'm not really trying to go anywhere or see anybody. Like I'm just trying to like giggle a little bit and taste grapes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, ooh, this is bad. And then I look at the clock and I'm like, oh my god, it's 12 o'clock. I told my mom that we would like do this bread thing or whatever. And I was like, and my husband was just like, well, just you can just sit through or whatever. And I was like, no, I can't. He's like, you just sit quietly in the corner. I was like, no, dude, the way I feel right now, I already know it's not possible. And I was like, and I can't back out. I just yesterday pulled this whole I'm tired thing and blah blah blah. I was like, oh my god, I have to like, I have to go. And I honestly now thinking about it, like I don't know why I felt like I had to be in there, but for some reason I had to be in there. I couldn't just send the kids in there. I don't know. It's weird. Why couldn't I have just sent the kids in there? I don't. That's really funny that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I just didn't want it to seem like anything was weird, and I just felt like I just said I was going to do it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I just started to sit there, and I was like, maybe I was just like high, so I was just like, wow, I'm cornered. I did it to myself. Like I tripped over myself. Like this whole thing has just gotten so messy that I just did that to myself. And I was like, so I think it's gonna all come out today. Like I can't believe it, but I think it's all coming out today. Like I just was saying that to myself. And I was like, wow, wow, that's funny. Like, how funny is that? Like, this is about to happen to me today. Like, and I'm high as a kite. Like, I was just like, wow, I'm about to like have to tell my mom that I've been using drugs. She's gonna be super thrilled about this. Like, it just, I mean, it's just so mind blowing. I wish you understood the context of my life so you can understand like how ridiculous that would have to have to like tell my mom something like that. It's like, yeah, the person raising your three kids and like, my husband just, it's been up and down with him. I get him, he's my husband, but she doesn't always. She's kind of like a worry warts type of person. She has been through a lot. She's like the only surviving member of her immediate family. So she's just, her whole life has just been funerals. And so she's constantly like, anytime you know, it's like, mom, guess what? It's like, what? She's always ready to hear some like the worst news possible. And it's just like not something I want to like, put her through. And so I was like, wow, she's going to see me on drugs today and I'm going to have to confess her. And I just got this thing over me that was just like, wow, it's all coming out. Like, part of me was like, it's like, God, why? Like, I was gonna like follow you. I was gonna like put this down today. This was like the last day. I was gonna put this down today, and then tomorrow, it was like I just was like kind of annoyed that that was happening, or I was just like, why is it happening this way? Aside from the fact that I did it to myself, and it was just like, but you know what? Like, it's humbling. It's like you can't just. I wanted to get this all licked privately. I was going to go through it privately and I was going to get it handled privately. And like, yeah, maybe 5 years down the road, be like, hey, remember that one year I was acting all super weird? Yeah, I was on drugs, but I got it taken care of. No worries. Like, and so it was like, this was preventing that. It was like, no, this is like, this is the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to, confess your sin, and, you know, and no one gets away with just whatever you're trying to get away with. It's like, no, this is humbling. And while I'm having that thought, um, it felt like I wish I could remember it. Like, oh man, I wish I could remember it. Oh my god. But I just remember there was a part where I was like near my living room, and I was telling my husband, I was like, babe, I was like, I think God is doing this. Like, I think God did this or whatever. Because I was sort of like circling my couch because I was going, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to tell my mom. I'm going to have to tell my mom. And he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's not be too hasty, because he kind of knew he was going to be in trouble. But I was like, I'm going to have to tell her. And then I was like, I think God is doing this. Like, I think God's doing something. And he goes, and he's like, I don't even remember what he said. I just remember I started thinking that. And I was like, I think God is doing this. And then I started, and then I vaguely remember I went into my room and I was in my head and I was still like feeling high. It's really funny too, because like I just remember being in my kitchen, like right before all this was happening. I was in my kitchen and I was like cutting up a plum or something, like for one of my kids. And I just felt so bad and so high. And I was like, dude, I was like, even if I hadn't said that whole thing about being done, like with this, like, wanting to pursue God, like, I'm just done anyways, because if I like having months of experience now and knowing what my threshold is and knowing what I should be doing, and this can still happen to me, like, forget it. I clearly don't know like the measurements and all this stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just a game. It's a gamble, and I'm done with this. Like, this is so awful. Like, I was, dude, and I knew that I had a whole bad day ahead of me. But anyway, so that was how bad it was. And so I went in my room and I was like still feeling high, but it was just like at some point, again, I wish I could remember. It was like I was lifted out of it, but like I kept going. It was like I was lifted. If it was like a dark, gloomy thing, it was like I was like pulled up, like, and out of it, but I wasn't sober. It didn't sober me. I was still high, but it was like I was like I started like going, you do this? Like, you did this. Like, are you doing this? Like, I was talking to God. And he said this thing to me. He said, well, I got this kind of like weird relationship with God, which is basically the less you know, the less you know of what the rules are, the more you can do like weird stuff. And so, in my 20s, you know I kind of always talk to God, tried to get this still small voice thing going. But like, I remember in my 20s, really, I started getting in the word when I was 18, was taking classes, and was really just starting, that part of my life where I was really trying to do that. And I just remember my 20s really wanting to develop this still small voice, this relationship with God, and being able to talk to Him, and just really having this childlike faith, which is kind of my jam. It's like, listen, bust out the childlike faith. So we just kind of like, I have a weird relationship with Him. And basically, like, if I don't go, oh no, that's silly, or no, that's not in the word, or you're not allowed to do that, I can really have some silly exchanges with God. Like, I'm perfectly willing to throw them out if I have to get to heaven and Him to say, no, all of that was you. It's super weird. Like, I'm totally fine with that, but I'm going to still make the attempt. And so, and it's usually one sided. It's me just saying weird stuff. But sometimes I get like, I feel like He's answering me. And so there's some pretty funny exchanges, that I've had in my mind. And um, so I kept going like, is this you? Like, is this you? I kept saying that over and over. And I kind of got this thing, and like the the memory of me saying like, I think I'm going to ask God, I'm going to pray to God about, revealing his love. And like, I didn't even pray it. I just made the plan to pray it. And he said 3 to 5 days. Like, that's what I kind of felt like I heard. Like, he reminded me of that, which is, if I can briefly summarize this, but I had this little prayer book that somebody gave me when I got married. And it's like, I don't know, Power of a Praying Wife. I think it's pretty much the title. It's a pretty popular thing. And so I'm really not about like pre-made prayers. Like, I'm just like, what even is this? But like, somebody gave me the book, and it's newlywed or whatever. It's like, whatever, I'll try it. And so it's like a pre-made prayer there, and then like notes where you can put whatever you want underneath there. And so I had this book, and I had been putting like, I would pray the prayer, and then I put like the date that I prayed it. And then like sometimes I would see, like, specifically, like there would be something in there that I know that I remember praying, and it would come to my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the thing I prayed. And so then I would put like the date next to it, like answered or whatever, or I felt like it was answered. And so I'd had that book for a minute, like a couple of months, and like I just happened to go through it, like, I don't know, a year later or whatever. And I noticed the dates on when I prayed it and when it was answered. And it was literally like a 3 to 5 day window. And I was so blown away by that. I was like, dude, I have like a FedEx, like a USPS, like time on my prayers. Like, that's really cool. Like, I don't think there was any of them that went unanswered, honestly. And it was this 3 to 5 day window. And so, um, a couple of times since then, when I have prayed something and I felt like, ooh, I think God heard that prayer. Like, I think I just prayed it. He's going to answer that prayer. And it would literally be in 3 to 5 days, like a couple of monumental things. And so this was another one where it was like, I just realized it had been 3 to 5 days since I had said that. And now something was happening to me. And I was like, oh my God, like, it's you. Like, I just kept saying, it's you, it's you. And I don't remember it now, but I do remember it. I just was freaking out. I was just like, I just, I was kind of like rolling around on my floor. And because I was going, I was like, oh my God, it's real. He's real, which was like, I was hearing myself say that. And I just remember being like, wow, like hearing myself say that over and over and just feeling bad, because it was like, I didn't know, obviously. Like, I was like, oh my God, how can I not know? But that was the thing that came out of my mouth. I couldn't deny what came out of my mouth over and over, which is, he's real, he's real. So I was like, wow, I didn't know. Like, and I remember I grabbed my purse, like it was hanging on my door, and I grabbed it, and it snapped, like the strap snapped. And like, I just was like, I was just, because it was like, he didn't, the high wasn't gone. He didn't sober me up. Like, so in my mind, I just started like putting things together, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, it was like he took over the high and was like in charge of the high. Like, I can't even, what are we talking about here? So, and then my husband came in. I remember vaguely him coming in and him being like, okay, calm down. Cause he thinks that I'm just like gone on. Like, like, I'm just on a rocket ship. Like, he doesn't even think any of it is like legit. He's just trying to get me to like chill out. And he wants to keep me like isolated to that room. And so I'm like, babe, did you hear what I said? Like, do you hear, like, see what's going on? Like God is doing something. I prayed and I asked him to show me like his love, his, like a revelation of his love. And like another thing was like, I felt like he was saying like, we're going to spend the day together. Like, come on, girl. Like, I just felt like that energy. And so when I heard that in my mind and I felt that, I interpreted that as, for some reason, I interpreted that as he's going to take me to heaven. I think because I was hitting such a jackpot already, where it was like I asked for this revelation of God's love, and like now it was like a tangible. It was like he was using the drugs. I don't. I still don't. I still. I don't know. But it was like he was using that experience, and like he was just like, to me it felt like I'm gonna be with you all day long, because it's like I knew that I was gonna have an uncomfortable day. It was gonna be at least 12 hours, and I felt like that's how I was gonna be, and God was gonna is like now in charge of the high, and like that's what was gonna happen. I was like, oh, if I'm already this blast, where I'm like, God's real, blah blah, like in another hour it's gonna kick in, and I'm gonna go somewhere. Like I just was like putting all of this together. So I was like, he's gonna take me somewhere. That's where my mind went. And so that happened, and then my husband was like, okay, that's great, but I need you to like get in the shower, chill out, whatever. So I'm like flipping out because like there's this whole thing with me where, I went through a period where I didn't even want to explore the love of God because I just didn't want to be disappointed by it, like in what it would mean for me. I just had like, I don't know, anybody who's been in church is familiar with this feeling, I think. But like particularly for me, it was just like, you know, I know how much I love God, and I know that He loves me like in a way that, He loves everybody. Like just trying to get my mind around an individual feeling, um, that He would have for me. It's like, no, God loves everybody. He died for all of I knew it as a fact of His nature and His character, not like, oh, if I'm the only person that ever would live, like He would die for me and blah blah blah. Which I always thought was just like this super weird thing to say, and it's like super narcissistic and just like, why is that? That's not even necessary. I just want like Him to like acknowledge me, like that I was talking, like when I was in a room. Like I don't need Him to be the only person He ever died for, or whatever. But that was something that I kept hearing over and over and over in these near death experiences. Like that's the love of God would come over them. They had that distinct understanding. And so I was forced to have to sort of confront this idea, like, okay, well, maybe He does love me in this unique individual way, and like if that's the case, like I need to explore that right now, because um just me having knowledge is not helping me. I need reality. And so the idea that these people who died, and they'd be like, oh, 6 minutes in heaven, 30 minutes in heaven. It's like the idea that I would inadvertently end up spending 12 hours with Him, like having this experience. And then it was like funny too, because it was like, yo, I can't, like, if something real happens to me, like if I go up there and I see, like, and I meet people and like see my dad or something like that, like I can't share this testimony anywhere, because I have to tell people that I was high off my ass and He took me to heaven. Like it's not even a good testimony for church. Like it's not even something you can get up in a church and tell people. And I just thought that was so funny that He would do that for me. Like for me, like again, you would have to know me, but this would be like if you had a friend that, like if you were sick or you were having a bad day or something bad happened to you, and you had your best friend just sent you a video, and it was just like old people falling, and it was like an hour of old people falling, and you just like cried because it was so heartfelt and sweet, and you like, that's someone that knows you. It's dark and weird, and they sent it to you, like no conversation. They knew it was going to be your therapy and that you're weird. It's like it was so, I was like, dude, this is so funny. It's funny. I was like, oh my God, is God joking with me right now? Like, Like I was so blown away. I was like, that's unorthodox. You're not supposed to like just let me be even higher. You're supposed to make me feel bad for doing this and like sober me up before you come and say we're gonna hang out. Like it was just like, are you making a? Are we joking now? Like, or is this really like? Are you being like? Are you literally being irreverent right now? Because I cannot take it. Like, I was just being overwhelmed with it. Like to just suddenly be going through your life and then suddenly you are feeling what seems to be the presence of God, but you don't even know because you never felt it before, but it's like clearly God. Like whatever oppressive bad feelings I had about that experience, it was like I just like got lifted out. It just was like and even then I didn't know what that was, but I was just like I can't I wish I could remember the shift. Like I just it's been a while now, so I don't remember, but I was just like, oh my God, like God is doing this for me. Like, this is crazy. So I cannot believe, I can, but I can't believe that I've been talking for an hour. I cannot continue to do this. So I wanted to get, I probably should have stopped before, but it would have been, why would you have listened to that whole thing? So I'll put that little part in there and then I will tell you the rest because um, I could probably get through that day, but I've already gone past an hour, so I won't go. I'll just remember where I stopped, and like tomorrow we'll pick this back up. But if anybody's listening and cares, so yeah, I'll enjoy the comment section if anybody has any comments, and I will see y'all tomorrow.